Now, Vinny Goodwill, who does work for ESPN, talked to some people, and the reporting that came out of that was he's hearing that, Jalen Duren could be seeking a 5-year deal worth $185 million. Now, not saying that he's not worth it, but my question to you is, do you think that the Detroit Pistons could actually offer him what he's really seeking?
So, first of all, if anyone's questioning this figure, what I'll say is Vinny Goodwill is as well tied in as anyone. So, if it's coming from Vinny, that's as good, that's as reliable of a Pistons source as you can get nowadays. Having said that, it definitely doesn't surprise me from the standpoint of you look at the ascension on the offensive end, and you look at kind of the fact that he's been, the talk of the town of the league. I would say based off of what we've seen thus far, I would be shocked if he's not an all-star this year. I would be shocked if he's not going to be, have at least heavily considered to be on on the 2028 Team USA team if he continues to keep playing like this. He's one of the most intriguing up and coming bigs in the league. And with that, I would say if there's anything I've kind of other observations just over the last week and just things that we've watched is Duren, I'm not going to say as come back down to earth, but it's there's definitely been there's been those super dominant games, and there's been the games where he struggled a little bit more. And specifically, I think if there's anything we're really kind of starting to see trend to being a little bit more of a problem, it's the turnovers. Sometimes specifically on the offensive end, he is he's great at initiating his offense, and he's great at creating his own opportunities. But there's also times where he just should not be doing it, and just doesn't make sense for him to be doing it, at least the way that he has been doing it. And if you look at some of the turnover numbers, he had a season high 6 against Portland last night. And that one in particular, there were just a lot of drives or takes that he was it's sometimes he just, once he gets the ball, there is no other thought than I am going to the rim. And when you're playing against teams, especially like Portland, where it's they have guys who have long and active hands, who can put pressure on the ball, who can make things really uncomfortable for you, you have to play a lot more selective than that. And I think if you look at some of the games where Detroit's played a bit closer than they should, I think you can kind of track Duren's struggles and turnover issues with it.
I feel like, and this is no knock at him, I think he's taken that next step in terms of putting the ball on the floor more. He's getting to the free throw line at a really high clip. I just kind of didn't expect him to take the leap that he's taking right now, and I think that's good.
Yep.
My only thing with I go back to what Trajan said on the Zach Lowe podcast when he was asked about contract extensions, how close were they? He said that they had a lot of conversations, but no deals were getting done. And he kind of touched on being able to still build a competitive team while trying to keep as much core guys as possible.
Yep.
I'm not saying $37 million a year is going to break the bank for the Pistons, but if you add up Kate Cunningham's $46, $50 million contract, and just reported $37 million, those two would be accounting for 50% of your cap space.
Yeah,
Not saying it's
you have Ausar Thompson up. You have Ausar Thompson up to bat next summer.
Yeah, and then Ron Holland the year after that. I'm not saying that Duren's not going to get paid. I'm not saying that the Detroit Pistons don't value him. I think they value him a lot. I think Cade Cunningham loves playing with Jalen Duren. The chemistry those two have, I think is next level. I don't think he's going to get the full 185. Now the Pistons might say, hey, we're not really feeling the 185. How's 165? How's 170?
Yep.
You always ask for more than you actually want. There might be a number where Duren might be asking for 185, and if they offered him 170, 172, he'd probably take it. Or maybe they kind of pulled the Jalen Green thing, which I know you had mentioned. saying like, why don't you just front load it for 3 years and he gets his 40 million and he's happy for 3 years and kind of revisit it. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of avenues that the Pistons can take. But I was pretty intrigued once I saw this figure this week. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it was an eye opener to say the least. Of like, okay, this is where the conversation's gone. Like I remember you and I right before the season started did a pod where we were having this exact same conversation, but the question wasn't is he worth 5 years 185. The question is was he worth 5 years 150? Was he worth 30 a year?
Yeah.
You know, and now, like I remember at the time, I compared, like I brought up the stats, and the center that that would have put him next to was Bam Adebayo. Well, now you're talking about the contract that Alperen Şengün got, which Alperen Şengün isn't just one of the most intriguing, like he's not just one of the best bigs in the league. He's like one of the most intriguing up and coming all stars in the league. And so now you're framing the conversation like, like, at the time I remember it's like, okay, now you're framing that conversation in a different light. Now we're having it in an even higher one. So
Yeah.
when we sound like we're nitpicking, or if we sound like we're criticizing, it's not because we're criticizing Jalen Duren, the player, as like who he is now. What we're doing is we're judging him from the context of like, let's say this is who he is right now at 5 years, $185 million. What are the biggest drawbacks from keeping you competitive? These things, right? Like, and
Yeah.
especially like when you talk about, and this is before you talk about, okay, well, what is it even going to look like if the Pistons do decide to also talk about a Jaden Ivey extension? What does it
Yeah.
look like with Asar Thompson, where, let's be honest, he's probably going to command 30 plus million a year. And I think you and I probably agree with his defensive prowess. Like, like there's not many numbers where I wouldn't go, okay, that doesn't make sense. With just some of the things he can do. So, like you said, it's just when you look at like the ways that teams like have to build throughout the league, it's like realistically speaking, you can really only pay two or three guys at max level. And so if you're putting Duren right there, you're essentially saying this is number one, number two, and this is going to be our championship core. Like, you're locking that in.
Yeah, that's where I think the conversation gets interesting because I was curious. Whoops, almost hit my mic over. I was curious to see like who are the top paid centers in the league, and obviously you have Jokic, Karl Anthony Towns, and Joel Embiid. They all make $50 million, and then it's kind of like the tier one, right? Then you have the tier two with Evan Mobley, and I believe I don't think the Montes Sabonis is at 40 million off the top of my head, but I think it's kind of like around the LP Sengun, Sabonis around there, like around the 38 to like $40 million range,
Mm-hmm.
which I think if he wants that, cool. You just got to prove it. Like you have to continue to develop your game. You have to continue, developing his post moves, which I think he's developed quite a bit. I'd like to see him continue to take mid-range jump shots. I know that it's a very small sample size in his mid-range game, but I've been, pretty pleased with, just his development in that aspect of his game. I think it's just really interesting to see what Trajan does because I think a lot of people look at the Pistons right now from a national perspective, and we're going to get into trades in a little bit. Um, I think a big reason why the Pistons might not make any moves is they have a lot of financial commitments they have to think about, not only for this summer, but next summer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jalen Duren's asking for 5 years, 185. You touched on Jaden Ivey. What could he be seeking? We don't know. Is Jaden Ivey seeking a $100 million contract? Could he be seeking more than that? So, I think there's a lot of like commitment that the Pistons obviously have to make decisions on. I'd like to keep Jalen Duren here. Obviously, the Pistons have his bird rights. There will be teams that do have cap space. I don't know too many teams that have cap space that are going to go into a bidding war with the Pistons personally.
Yeah.
If this was the price point, because I think there's a lot of NBA teams right now that are scared to death of this new CBA and the new
Yep.
aprons. I don't really think a lot of teams want to be in the aprons. Like, you don't want to be in a situation like Cleveland's a good example. Like, Cleveland is in the apron right now. They're very taxed of what they can do. You look at their books and the guys that they've paid. Like, if they don't make the conference finals this year, like, they're probably trading Jared Allen. They're probably retooling. They
And like
might trade Darius Garland too. It's interesting.
and like let's call a spade a spade. They're not that good right now. Like if you look at the Cavaliers in the standings specifically, like they're by Philly and Atlanta, which is like I remember like having the conversation at the beginning of the year. It's like this is the Cavaliers like conference finals to lose. Like this is like they better get to the finals this year. But what we're finding and what we're constantly seeing over and over again is these teams that build through the draft, build young, like don't go very deep into those like cap areas. Like those are the teams that are doing well right now. And so that's kind of the other piece where it's like for the Pistons, where it's like you don't necessarily want to like get deep into those aprons because it's like what success has that brought anyone thus far in this new era? It hasn't.
No, I mean, look what Boston did. They freaked out as soon as they got in the second apron. They traded Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday immediately and retooled because they didn't want to be in the second apron, and they have new ownership, obviously, and that probably had some kind of factor. But just to kind of circle it back to Jalen Duren, if he does want that 5 years, 185, I think he's just got to prove it on the court. And, Trajan Langdon and the Pistons front office brass will have those conversations with him and Jaden Ivey this summer for contract extensions. But, man, we were talking about, 5 years, 125. We're like, yeah, we could do that, 130. We obviously had no idea that he was looking for closer to 40 million. We thought it was a $30 million thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he radically changed the conversation of who he is and who he can be as a player overnight by by the level of play that he's had this year. Just props to him, man. I mean, he's looking like the guy that I think we all knew he could be for years.
Yeah, I mean, like the offensive growth is great to see.
Yep.
And he just turned 22.
Right.
It's not a saying that like he can't keep continuing to develop, because you could kind of like look at the contract as just investing like long term. Like, if he keeps developing his offensive game, matures more, locks in a little bit more consistently defensively, then maybe the contract does age gracefully, because the cap space will go up, I believe. It's not going up 10% this year, it's going up 8%, but it's projected to go up 10% each year. So,
Yep.
that 38, 37 million might not look as bad in a few years.
Only thing that will be interesting to see with the with like those salary cap increases is like obviously from the national media deal standpoint, I think everything's looking great right now.
Mhm.
Ratings are up, everything's going really well from that standpoint. I think over the next couple of years though, and like this could be a whole other podcast. I think we're about to see a real like reckoning and like confrontation of like the RSNs and like the regional sports networks and local viewership rights and all those different things. Like, I think that model is going to change and that could definitely have an impact. But all that to say, I think like with Jalen Duren, this is a good problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted someone to take a leap, and I don't think too many people this summer confidently could look you in the eye and say, "Yeah, Jalen Duren's taking that leap." It was like Asar Thompson. Everyone was like on the
Oh
Asar train.
yeah.
Obviously, Asar has taken leaps this year, but Jalen Duren has taken a huge leap in his offensive game, which I'm happy to see. I'm happy that he was able to kind of get those touches early on, because without Jaden Ivey, I mean, you kind of find out like what players are made of. Different guys step up. So, him being able to put the ball on the floor, have the mid range, post moves. I mean, he had like a little dream shake yesterday against Portland, against Robert Williams. I was like, oh man, that footwork was beautiful. So, I mean, I'm happy he's on the team. It'll be interesting to see what he does get, though, this summer.